welcome to another episode of Nanyang Spectrum. I'm Kimberly Tape, and today we have a great lineup for you. Are you looking for love? We will be taking a look at how you could find love with the help of a speed dating event. And with the Oscars over and the semester break coming soon, it's time to plan what new movies to watch. If you want plenty of action, our film buff Nadira reviews this summer's superhero flicks. Finally, Rasfardia visits the Singapore Malay Orchestra to soak in some music and find some very unusual instruments. Stay with Nanyang Spectrum to find out more.
And in Let's Talk, I will be talking to Jolene Tan, a poet who has already published 2 books at the age of 20. Also, Muhammad Fairil, a flautist with the Singapore Malay Orchestra, will be talking about the people behind the music.
Let's talk about the quest for love. Yang, a communication studies student, is on a journey to find love, but not through the seemingly obvious ways, but instead through a speed dating event held right here on campus. So, will she be lucky in love or not?
Flowers? Check. A pretty outfit? Check. Meet Yang, 20, single, and ready to explore new ways of meeting people. The NTU Toastmasters Social Night offers just that, where singles are encouraged to mingle with the opposite gender. The goal is to provide an opportunity for students to widen their social circle and hone their communication skills. The event was held at the Student Activities Center on the eve of Valentine's Day. It was attended by 30 participants who declined to be filmed. Speakers gave separate talks on how to make a good first impression.
You want to find a good match, so you want to be honest.
I think most of them have a lot of cool stories, a lot of cool things to say, and all they really need, right, are just some good pointers of what to share, some simple conversation guidelines, and I think they're doing fine.
Participants had 5 minutes to get to know each other. When the bell rang, the males moved one seat down and started a new conversation.
We have introduced an educational aspect to this event. Rather than just focus on the interaction, we decide to beef the students up with skill sets that are very relevant.
With clubs organising such events, it boils down to whether university students are ready to jump on board with the idea.
I don't think it's too early. I guess it's a very good opportunity for people to go out there and meet new people and also to expand their network.
We all come here in an open mind, wanting to meet people and have fun. And to be honest, we have heard so much stereotypes on it online everywhere. Don't you want to know what it really is like inside,
However, other students are more skeptical.
Personally, I would not attend such events because I think it's quite superficial.
Some people go in with the wrong mindset, they go into for the purpose of finding a life partner.
But with open-minded participants like Yang, the stigma of joining such events might be overcome. So whether or not Yang managed to find love at the Toastmaster Social Night, one thing's for sure, she definitely made some new friends. This is Jeanette Tan, reporting from Nanyang Technological University.
Well, good luck to Yang and her love life. But now we move from love to heroes. If you're a huge fan of superhero movies, like me, then you will be pleased to know that sequels to Captain America, The Amazing Spider-Man, and X-Men will soon be showing in theatres island-wide.
It's tearing the old one down. And that makes enemies.
This is bigger than you, Peter.
I want your suffering. I don't want your future.
So, let's find out if students are excited for these films.
It's popular nowadays, so I feel that it would be wasteful if I did not, watch it.
Obviously, Marvel movies, their ratings are always very high, and it's advisable to watch their movies.
What do students expect from the plot this time round?
Like for X-Men, there are more characters involved, so I think there will be more complicated relationships that's going on in the movie.
The Spider-Man will save the world again and get together with the pretty girl and then save the world again.
Well, I am pretty sure fans of superhero movies are already waiting impatiently for them to hit our cinemas.
My favourite superhero will be Jean Grey from X-Men because she has telekinetic power, and it's quite cool that she can control objects with her power and then create her own force field.
The ability, superhero ability will be Spider-Man. You know, it would be he's fast, very agility, strong.
I think I would prefer the X-Men Jean Grey ability, the ability of reading minds.
We are all excited for the upcoming blockbusters this summer. It will definitely be the most thrilling time at the cinema. So, mark your calendars and get your tickets early. This is Nadira reporting.
Now, did you know that some early poetry evolved from folk songs and others from epic folk stories? Today we speak to a 20-year-old poet who continues that long tradition, but has also found how poetry can help her in her life.
Today, our first guest is Jolene Tan. She has published 2 poetry books, and her poetry mostly reflects her struggle with body image. So welcome, Jolene.
Hi.
Would you like to tell us how you got started on poetry?
Actually, I've been writing since a very young age. So about 8 or 9, I started writing. But I was writing like my own versions of fairy tales. And then when I got into JC, there was a lot of exposure to poetry because we were doing a paper that required us to analyze unseen poetry for one component. That's when I found out that poetry is what comes easiest to me. It sounds weird because a lot of people find poetry hard to write, but I just find it easier than like narrative plot lines that you use for novels and stuff like that.
So you've recently released 2 books in Singapore?
Yeah.
So would you like to tell us more about how the process was like?
Oh, right. I got really lucky for the publishing process because I didn't go through the whole process of sending them to different publishers and hoping that someone would accept me. I wrote a lot of poetry and I showed them to my JC literature teacher, and she sent them to the publisher and she was like, here's some stuff that my student has written. Do you want to take a look at it? So he read it and he was like, let's do it. So then he asked me for a manuscript, so we did the manuscript and then it just happened. Yeah.
Okay. What is your inspiration behind your poetry?
Right, I write a lot about body image, which is where the first book, Bursting Seams, comes from, because I feel like it's something that a lot of people feel, and a lot of girls in particular feel, and something that has bothered me a lot as I grew up as well. And I realized that no one was talking about it. Like no one came out and said like, look, girls are having body image issues and people feel ugly about themselves. So you don't really get the sense that anybody knows that other people are feeling this way, and a lot of people start to feel like it's not okay to not be a certain standard, like to not live up to a certain standard of beauty. So then I feel like it's something that has to be talked about because people have to know that these things are being felt and these things are things that have to be said. Yeah.
So what are the other avenues that you have gone through to bring your message across to?
Right, I do a lot of spoken word. So spoken word is basically poetry that's read, but it has a different feel because your poems have to be written a certain way for you to deliver them well in spoken word. So when I read at spoken word events, I read a lot of the body image poems that I write about because it makes sense. Since I want people to hear about these issues, it only makes sense that I read them to a public audience, and they're generally well appreciated because I have people coming up to me and saying, hey, I feel this way too, and thank you for writing about it. Where are you in your body, in your journey with body image? And it's nice to share with these people the fact that it's never going to be over, but you are capable of fighting it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your insight.
No
Would you
problem.
be able to read us a segment piece from your book?
Sure. I'll read Tsunami, which is about the tsunami that happened in Japan in 2012. Yesterday, Japan became Atlantis, but we cannot turn into water people who can breathe with gills and live in the crystal palaces on the bed of the ocean. Fishes out of water, men in their depths, in their places. While I was asleep, countries drank a drop too much, had wine forced on their faces, and there were people all over who dissolved into oblivion. What is the measure of God's fury? The world is dying.
That was a really touching poem, and I hope you all enjoyed these inspiring words as much as I did. But now, it's time to hear some wise words from our super sage Selwyn. That's right, it's time for Selwyn's Moment.
and finally a system for me to get out of single zone. I'm not sure whether did they mention about speed dating, the probability rate, is it how high, but so I assume that it's supposed to be 1. So for all those people who are like me, the traffic light status like green, evergreen or evergreen so far away that people here only also know that you are green, you should go and try this. I'm going to try this soon. In case you all don't know what traffic light green is actually single. So for other colors traffic light, you might go and try asking your friend. So Kim, so what's your advice for my first outing?
Okay, I think don't bring her to a horror movie, because then what if the girl gets traumatized on your first date and she doesn't want to go out with you ever again? So bring her to a romantic comedy. You get the romance part, you get the laughter, you can make for good dinner conversation after that, you know what I mean?
Whoa.
Yeah, so here's wishing you all the best, Selwyn, but let's move on first. Now, there's always been a relationship between poetry and music. The lyrics of a song are a poem with music. But music also has its own blend of poetry and voices. The Singapore Malay Orchestra performs using a mix of Western and traditional Malay instruments to create music that appeals to both the young and the old. Our reporter, Ros Fardia, visits the orchestra to find out about the musicians and the poetry of music.
Right behind these doors are the talented musicians from the Youth Orchestra Melayu Singapura. They are rehearsing for their 10-year anniversary concert, which they will be giving a performance. So let's see. Many of the young musicians come from different schools, including secondary schools and colleges. By playing both traditional and contemporary music, the orchestra has been reinventing themselves over the years to attract more youth to join them.
Okay, my instrument will be drums. Okay, I've been playing for years, and the thing for drum in this band is to drive the music and give more impact on it.
I want to learn how to play in a group, in a band, and so I joined this orchestra because I want to learn more about the Malay orchestra, how they are played, all that.
With their concert coming up in March, the musicians has been practicing hard for many weeks. So we have Mr. Zhu here, a conductor for the Youth Wing Orchestra Melayu Singapura. So Mr. Zhu, how is it like being a conductor?
Okay, I think for the conductor just like me, it's my responsibility to bring out the essence of the music, especially those written scores, to ensure that every music or every song that they play according to what's written.
The Youth Orchestra Melayu Singapura will be performing at Bukit Batok Community Centre on the 9th of March. This is Rose reporting for People's Association Headquarters.
Now, have you ever wondered what it's like being part of a large family who all love one thing? Up next, we have someone who can talk about that experience and his time working with the Malay Orchestra Right. This is Let's Talk.
Hello, Fairul. Thanks for coming down today. When did you start playing with the orchestra?
Started playing with the orchestra, this Singapore Malay Orchestra, when I was 17, which is in 2004. So up to now, yeah.
Were you always the flautist in the orchestra?
No, actually I started out as a percussionist when I was 8 years old, when I was in primary 2, but I decided to change to something new, decided to learn something new when I was 17, yeah.
But why the flute and not something else?
Maybe because it's the most melodious instrument, so I guess, people may learn tuba, trumpet and stuff like that, but flute is something which is more of Malay music, actually uses a flute rather than a trumpet or a trombone, like the soloists and stuff like that, so I decided to try the flute.
Are you always passionate about Malay music?
Initially I wasn't, so, because when we talk about Malay music, what people always think about is boring, it's so ancient and stuff like that. It's like learning classical music. But after a while, there's this interest in it. We learn all the different genres of music. For example, the inang, the joget, the masri and stuff like that, the asli, all this type of stuff. After a while, actually, it became quite interesting to me. I learned a little bit on history and stuff like that.
Would you care to tell us more about the fine differences between the genres that you mentioned earlier?
Okay, let's say for example the joget. Most of us actually do the joget. Like for example, if you go to Malay clubbing, clubbing, it's like doom ticka doom doom ticka doom doom ticka, or maybe the asli, which is a slow music. Usually they tells a love story, doom ta ta, doom 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 ta ta. Or the inang, most of us actually play the inang. If you notice, like for example, doom taka takun doom doom taka takun doom. Yeah, so these are all the different genres. This is just a drums rhythm. It's just a drum rhythm, but the melody is the one that makes a lot of difference to it.
I see.
Yeah.
So, do you think the Malay music genre is becoming popular in Singapore?
Popular in Singapore. That's the reason why Orchestra Melayu Singapore is formed. Initially, before that, you don't really hear much of Malay music in Singapore. You only do listen to all those old music, like during the P. Ramlee era, which is the 60s and stuff like that. But that's why Orchestra Melayu Singapore is formed, because we want to establish again, like to bring up the name of Malay music. Yeah.
So, would you be able to show us a piece that you play in the Malay orchestra? Thank you, Fairo, for the performance. So, Kim, what do you think of the performance?
I thought it was a really great performance, and I think everyone can see how talented Fairo really is. Well, thank you all for joining us in this episode today. Poetry and music are two of my favorite things, so I really enjoyed it, and I hope you had a good time too. We'll see you next week at Nanyang Spectrum. Thank you and goodbye.